Hey, Moline High School, welcome to your social emotional lesson for April 30th, 2025. We are going to talk about decision making today. First, some counseling updates. There are 17 days left for seniors and early graduation juniors and 21 days left for everyone else. Let's finish the year strong, everybody. Complete your credit recovery classes. If you are eligible for summer school credit recovery, your counselor will be in touch with you. Another update, attention seniors and early grad juniors, Linotype needs your help. The newspaper staff would like to know about your post-high school plans. Please take a moment to complete the Google form. This is going to be posted in the lesson, to the announcements in the grade 12 Google Classroom, and I am emailing it to all of the early grad juniors. So look for an email from Ms. Borman for a link to this Google form. All right, so today we're going to talk about making decisions, big and small. First, we're going to do a little introduction activity, snap decisions. We're going to talk about influencers of decisions and then your consequences, and then we have an activity. This is a little bit longer of a video today. I'm going to have some times where teachers, if you would like, you can pause and talk as a whole group. Students, if you're watching this on your own, I will also be talking about things on the video, or teachers, you can just let the whole video go as well. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to read a little paragraph about my morning, and I want you to see if you can figure out how many decisions I made this morning. All right, here we go. The alarm went off this morning and I pushed the snooze button. 10 minutes later, I got out of bed and took a shower. Then I brushed my teeth. For breakfast, I had a glass of juice and a bowl of cereal with bananas. I put on these clothes and my black shoes, but then I changed my shoes before I left because I wanted to wear a different pair. So from that little story, how many decisions did I make this morning? So the alarm went off and I pushed the snooze button, and 10 minutes later I got out of bed and I took a shower. Then I brushed my teeth, and for breakfast I had a glass of juice and a bowl of cereal with bananas on top. I put on these clothes and my black shoes, but then I changed my shoes before I left the house. So I made 10 decisions just in that little paragraph. The whole point of this is to let you know that you make decisions all the time, constantly making decisions. Sometimes your decisions are easy, sometimes they're harder, and sometimes they matter, sometimes they don't. But you make decisions constantly. So for our next quick little activity, I am going to read off 6 questions, and I want you to answer the question in your head as quickly as possible, and then we're going to talk about them. All right, here we go. On which wrist would you wear a watch or a bracelet? Did you choose to wear white, black, or colored socks today? Or maybe no socks at all? What will you do after school today? If you were going to see a movie tonight, what movie would you see? You have to finish reading a book by next Monday. When are you going to do it? If you found money by your locker, would you keep it and not tell anyone? Or would you try to find out who dropped it? All right, how did that go for you? Were you able to think about those answers quickly? Here are the list of questions. Teachers, if you want to pause the video here to talk about these questions, you're more than welcome to. So now let's talk about, was it harder to answer some of the questions than others? Which ones were easier or more difficult, and what was the hardest to answer and why? Again, teachers, this would be a spot where you could pause if you wanted to talk with your class. Going back and looking over those questions, honestly, the first couple were really simple for me to answer. I always wear stuff on my left hand. I'm a right-handed person, so I like to wear bracelets and watches on my left. I obviously don't have any on today. That's just kind of my preference. I've always kind of done it that way. Wearing socks are simple for me. I don't think too much about it. I either wear shoes that don't require socks, or I usually wear white socks. Sometimes black, depending on my outfit, but socks are pretty simple for me. As far as reading the book, I read on a pretty regular basis, so finishing a book is not difficult for me. But some of you may not love to read, so it might be a little bit harder of a decision for you. And then talking about finding money by your locker, that one kind of becomes a little bit more of a harder question to answer. Kind of depends on the context of the situation and how much money it is. So the question might become a little bit harder for you to answer. Next, we're going to talk about influencers of decisions and never mistake the power of an, sorry, I'm going to start again. Never mistake the power of influence. Influencing decisions is a huge, huge thing. So if you sit and think about this for a moment, what influences your decisions? Here are some of the things that I came up with. Your friends, your family, your culture, the school, your teachers might influence decisions, laws, and yes, I know I have laws on here twice. I saw that earlier and I forgot to delete it. Your environment, just where you're at. Maybe sometimes your decisions are influenced by the different environments. Maybe you make different decisions based on whether you're at home or work or school. TV, movies, social media, or all media. Obviously, media is huge. Those of you who have considered going into marketing, that is going to be your job. You are going to be an influencer of decisions. That's what marketing is. Those of you who want to be a social media influencer, that's exactly what you're doing. You want to influence people to make other decisions or to make their decisions. Have you ever been influenced to make a decision that you wish you would have made differently? Have you learned from making decisions? You need to understand why you make decisions, thinking about your goals, your values, strengths, skills, likes, and dislikes. Again, teachers, this would be a good spot if you would like to pause. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep talking. So, being influenced to make a decision that you wish you would have made differently. I would be surprised if I could find someone who's like, nope, every decision that I've made, I'm glad that I made it. I think everybody can go back and think about a decision that they would want to change. Doesn't mean that it had to be a super negative decision that happened or a negative thing that happened, but sometimes you're just like, oh, I wish I would have made a different decision today. A really simple example would be like, you remember earlier when I said that I don't really think a lot about my socks, right? I just kind of put on the socks that I'm going to wear for that day. Well, what if I accidentally put on a pair of socks and I didn't pay attention and they had a hole in them? That would drive me nuts. I would be able to feel that all day. So, yeah, I would go back and think to myself, oh, shoot, I really wish I would have put on different socks today. Again, that's a really simple one, but there's a lot of things that you could go back and think, wow, I would have really done that differently. Have you learned from making decisions? I learn constantly from decisions that I make. And I know a lot of times when people hear that statement, you think that, oh, I have to learn a lesson from a mistake. But that's not necessarily what that statement means. It can mean another thing too. You could learn that you did something positive and you want to continue to do something positive. So, for example, maybe you took some time to really study for a test and you realized that studying and how to study, maybe you got some tips on how to study things a little bit differently, and you did really well on the test, and that decision to study and learn how to study helped you do well, so now you continue to do it in the future. So learning from making decisions can help you build really good habits as well. So understanding why you make decisions, again, thinking about your goals, your values, your strengths, what you like, what you dislike. Going back to the story that I told at the beginning about eating breakfast. I like cereal. I would totally choose cereal and I would totally put bananas on top. But maybe you're thinking to yourself, wow, I would never choose to make cereal. I hate cereal. Or maybe you can't drink milk. So you would have chose something different for breakfast. Consequences of decisions. So, what does the word consequences mean to you? Think back to the first activity today from Snap Decisions and what kinds of consequences come from those decisions? I'm going to put those questions back up. Teachers, if you would like to pause at this point to have a discussion with your class, you're welcome. Otherwise, I'm going to continue. So consequences to me means that it's the result of an action. What happens when I do something? I make a decision or I do something and I have a consequence. I have a reaction. So every action has an equal and opposite reaction. I just had to throw that in there. If we think back to the SNAP decisions today, what kinds of consequences come from these decisions? So which wrist you wear your watch or bracelet on, not a big, huge consequence there. Going back to the socks, the consequence of wearing a socks with holes in them, like I mentioned earlier, was that I had a really rough day, so I would have made a different decision. But normally socks don't make a big decision. What you do after school today, that could have a whole host of consequences, just depending on what you're choosing to do. Finishing reading a book. If you choose to wait, like if today's Wednesday and the book that you have to read has to be done by Monday, and you choose to not read it at all, you're going to have a really rough Sunday night, or maybe you lose points on your assignment on Monday, something like that. So that would be some consequences of making the decision to not read the book. Finding money by your locker. Would you keep it or would you try to find who dropped it? Like I said before, it kind of all revolves around the context of the situation. Maybe you know the people around your locker and maybe someone around your locker you know is a little clumsy and probably dropped it, so you might want to check with them. Maybe it was $1. Maybe it was a lot of money. Maybe it was $50. Like that can kind of be a little bit of a consequence. And you overhear your friends saying that they dropped a $50 bill and you just chose to keep it. How would that make you feel? So consequences of your decisions can come in multiple forms. Again, consequences are a result of your decisions. They can be positive, negative, or neutral. So positive, you achieve your goals, you improve your well-being, you build stronger relationships, personal and professional growth, and you can increase your confidence and your self-esteem if you make positive decisions. Negative decisions, you might lose time, money, effort, you might damage your reputation, missed opportunities, lose some confidence, increase your stress and regret, and you could damage relationships. Sometimes, and again, neutral is just a decision that you made. Eating cereal with bananas, probably not a huge consequence to my life. Very neutral decision. Just gave me some food, made my body feel better. Some consequences can be immediate or they can be make a long-term decision. I went to college to become a teacher and then a counselor. That had a long-term effect on my career and what I do with my life and how I interact with others. That gave me a long-term decision. Choosing what socks to wear, short-term decision. Short-term. It can affect yourself or it can affect others. So again, your consequences have a broad range of things that can happen and how they can affect you and other people. We are now to the activity. I have 3 options that are located in on a Google Doc in the classroom. I have some quotes on the Google Doc. You can analyze a quote. Number 2, list out your decisions from this morning, kind of like write a short little paragraph or just write out the steps of things that you did this morning and think about all the decisions that you made this morning. Or number 3, you can describe a decision that you made. These activities can all be done whole class, small group, partners, by yourself, however you would like to do them. The Google Docs in the classroom, a copy is made for each student. So students, if you're doing this by yourself, or even if you're doing it in a small group, you're able to type your answers out if you would like to. You can even do all 3 of them if you have time to do all 3. Our last lesson is going to be in 2 weeks. I'm going to finish up decision making and sign off for the rest of the year. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and we will talk to you all soon. Bye.